Hello and welcome to Unsportsmanlike Conduct, the show where two British brothers talk all things NFL. I'm your host, Dom Corbs, and I'm joined by my co-host, Nick Corbs. And today, Nick, we're going to be going over the tight end rankings.
Yeah, Dom, tight end is a position I hold very dear to my heart. Having played there previously and currently playing at tight end number 2. A little bit of a move blocking tight end with 1 reception on the year. And I also want to give a quick shout out to friend of the pod, Alex McMillan, for hammering home, asking for a tight end ranking. So, Mookie, this one's for you.
Are you actually playing tight end? Sorry, I missed that the first time round.
Yeah,
Are you actually playing tight end now?
Yeah, no, like, in basic jumbo package, I get moved in line, and it's a bad day to be a linebacker if you're coming up against me.
No, who's your pro comp at tight end?
Who's my pro comp? I'd say Evan Ingram. I'd say I'm more of an Evan Ingram style. Maybe more of a willing blocker without the athleticism, but that's what I have to go for.
Jesus, that is ugly. The Edinburgh Mavericks desperately need a new tight end then. Good grief. But no, we're going to be going over our tight end rankings as I just said. So we're going to do our top 3, maybe an honorable mention, basically talking about the top tight ends in this class that are going to be in or around the first or second round. Now we have done our wide receiver rankings, and if you're listening and you're new to the pod, make sure you subscribe because we're going to come at you with loads more draft content. But in the same way, these rankings are not going to be the be all and end all, but they are definitely going to be like the same names in or around the same point. It just allows me and Nu to change essentially our rankings if there is a massive rise at the Senior Bowl, if there is a massive rise off the back of the Combine. So make sure you subscribe for more content and let's get into it, Nu. So tight end, it's a very strong tight end class. Who do you have at 3 or an honourable mention?
So, Dom, I've sort of approached this a bit differently because, first of all, I actually love evaluating tight ends. It's my favourite position to evaluate because every team needs another tight end. You can't have too many, you can't have enough, and every single one of these players who we're going to talk about, who will be mentioned down the line, will be able to contribute for your team. As a Giants fan, we had Bellinger and Theo Johnson, sorry. And they're always a mid-round pick that can actually add value to your team. So it's really interesting to evaluate because they do actually make differences at the NFL very consistently. So it feels like a bit more rewarding than, let's say, a running back who might never really get much snaps. So
I think that's a good point because what I've got here is I've got, just to kind of contextualize the discussion that we're about to have, the quarterback needy teams like officially, like, per PFF, and ones that I also agree with that need a tight end as like a point of principle are the Jets, the Colts, the Chargers, the Broncos, those teams in particular. But I would also agree with you, Nu, in saying that basically, unless you're the 49ers with Kittle, the Vikings with TJ Hawkinson, the Lions with Laporta, the Bills with Dalton Kincaid, the Ravens with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, the Raiders obviously as well with Brock Bowers, and maybe the Steelers. Yeah, maybe the Steelers with Pat Freiermuth and who's that mental athlete, the one that was hurdling people from Georgia?
Georgia. I can't think.
That's going to really annoy me. But anyway, essentially every team apart from those 6, 7, could do with another tight end.
Well, Dom, I think even those teams, for example, I'm going to mention Luke Lachey now, actually, who's one of my honourable mentions, a tight end out of Iowa, who, it's obviously very easy to helmet scout with tight ends, but he's an Iowa tight end. He's an absolute workhorse, an amazing blocker, essentially an extra lineman. He's nowhere near as explosive as the Iowa guys in the league right now. He doesn't really have that receiving upside. But Luke Lachey in round 3 could really be a great tight end number 2, really add to your run game, really add to your jumbo packages, and really make a difference even if you have an already good tight end.
Yeah, that's a good shout, Nu. Who doesn't love an Iowa tight end? It's like an Ohio State wide receiver or like a Penn State linebacker. Like, there are just some universities, some colleges, some schools which really churn out NFL player after NFL player at a specific position. I've not actually watched Luke Lachey, but what would you say his biggest strength is?
Well, Thomas, his biggest strength is inline blocking, winning blocker, great pop in his blocks. You hear it on film. When he hits a linebacker, you see the head shoot back, and they basically want to get out of the way. However, he just doesn't have that receiving upside, really. You don't see, the George Kittle plays, the Sam Laporta plays, the Noah Fant plays, that these Iowa tight ends have done in the past that you just don't really see with him. But he is still very good at what he's asked to do.
Interesting. I have an honourable mention as well, and mine is Gunnar Helm, the tight end from Texas. Have you watched him?
I have, yeah, no, I especially watched him in the Clemson game yesterday. I thought he had quite a good game there.
Yeah, no, he did. He did. Basically, what's so interesting about Gunnar Helm is he's kind of the reason as to why Texas haven't really had like a big downfield passing attack because they don't need to. Last year, it was Quinn Ewers just trying to throw it deep essentially to an Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy. Now, with them obviously both being in the league, it's kind of changed now massively. It's just kind of this underneath stuff to Gunnar Helm. And he's a very solid receiving tight end, I would say. His strengths, he's got good ball skills. He uses that 6'5" frame really well. He's got very reliable hands. It's a limited sample size. He's not the most seasoned tight end out there at all. He's only got 2 drops in his career, but there's not that many snaps. But nevertheless, clearly good hands. He's a decent route runner. I think he's more of a find grass kind of route runner, like a classic, short and intermediate level of the field. Just get open, get into space, catch the ball. And, not quite a route running savant, but definitely serviceable at the next level. And I think he's a good athlete as well. He's got good burst and acceleration after the catch. Now, my weaknesses for Gunnar Helm are that he's only got average long speed, so he's not going to really threaten defenses from the seam. He's not going to take the top off that way. Not that you really expect a tight end to do that, obviously. If you need to take the top of a defense, you draft a 5'9" Xavier Worthy, right? Who's 170 pounds. You don't expect a 6'6", 6'5" tight end to do that. But it is useful to have a bit of speed. From the slot. He's not a value add in the run game. I think this is what's going to be very interesting with tight ends and is a little bit similar to running backs in pass pro, right? It's not just about your ability to catch passes. It's also, can you actually play tight end? You need to be able to really be used in line, sometimes block. If you really want to be an out and out starting difference maker at the tight end position. Obviously, like you said at the beginning of the show, there are tight ends who's the Giants' old one that you referenced?
Bellinger, Theo Johnson.
Not Bellinger, the one that you comped yourself to.
Oh, Evan Ingram.
Evan Ingram, right? There are tight ends who are receiving tight ends and there are blocking tight ends, but the best tight ends are the ones that can do both because that gives you that versatility. It means that you'll get a linebacker matched up against you in the passing game because, they don't want to leave a linebacker on you in the run game. And if they do put a corner or a safety on you, you run outside zone and you block them into the dirt. So that's really where the value of the tight end position comes. And I know it's easy to get sort of lured in by them catching passes, but really you do kind of need a tight end to do the nitty gritty stuff. Gunnar Helm can't really do that. He's not going to be a value add in the run game. He kind of loses his pad level and doesn't really have control. So that will kind of limit him. I think he'll be great on as a move blocker in outside zone, for example. And my pro comparison for him is a Mike Gesicki, Dalton Schultz. That's the kind of tight ends we're working with in the league, aren't we? When people start thinking that who's the Bears tight? When people start thinking that Cole Kmet is a top 7 in his position, that's when you know that there are not a lot of talented players at that position, right?
Yeah, it's a fantasy waiver wire pickup. It's the week 12 bye-week hell, and you're like, oh my god, who am I going to start at tight end? Okay, I've heard of this guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the zero tight end meta. Just take one on waivers whenever you you're caught your tight ends on a bye.
Johnny Smith did me a job, is all I'm going to say.
Mate, Johnny Smith. That's. I think this is what's really interesting also about the tight ends is that if you go to a creative offensive coordinator who run an offensive scheme which fits your skill set, you can really be a great player. Johnny Smith for the Dolphins is a fantastic example of exactly that. He's not exactly been an impact tight end at any other point in his career, but he goes to Miami, who run outside zone, who are creative with the ways they scheme open receivers. Not the number one guy, but he can do a job, and he's doing really, really well. I mean, I said for Gunnar Helm that I think he'd be a reliable starting tight end for about a third of NFL teams, if not more.
Yeah, I think this class is super, super deep. And I just want to quickly build off the Evan Ingram point with 2 more honorable mentions. Because these players deserve to be evaluated in their own right. However, they're just too similar, and we don't have that much time to discuss. Is Oronde Gadsen and Eli Stowers, the tight ends out of Syracuse and Vanderbilt. Both these guys, when you watch them on film, they look like receivers because they effectively are. Eli Stowers even used to be an ex-quarterback. These aren't guys who are going to have any value in the run game whatsoever. However, obvious passing downs, they will bring value. They're great jump ball receivers, great production, just that they're not really tight ends. Them and Luke Lachey do not play the same position. They are 2 completely different positions, which is why I find evaluating it so interesting, because there's so many different ways to play this one position and so many ways to bring value in different ways. But that really is what limits their overall potential, is because they will never really be able to get there as value in the run game, or just not even to not be a liability because they're not asked to do it. They're effectively big receivers with a Y on the play sheet. So I really like them. Really fun film to watch, but I can't put them above the second round.
You're cooking here, Nu. You're cooking here. I'm not going to lie. Okay, all right. Nicky Corbs, a draft analyst. So, top three?
Yeah, sure. Do you go with your number 3 first?
So my number 3 is Harold Fanin, the tight end from Bowling Green. Is he in your top 3?
Yes, he is in my top 3, but I've got some opinions on him. I don't think I'm quite as high on him as you are, Dom, but...
Well, so he's my 3rd?
Yeah.
Okay, so... Basically, for those of you that don't know, our listeners that don't know, Harold Fanin basically like almost led the country in like receiving yards and catches, and this guy's production has genuinely been crazy. Now, yeah, it's at a school like Bowling Green, which obviously is not exactly a college football powerhouse, but he is a dynamic receiving threat. This guy's got 100 receptions for 1,342 yards and 9 touchdowns. And he is essentially like the wide receiver 1 for Bowling Green. He's a yards after the catch threat. In 2024, he had 750 yards after the catch for a 7.5 yards after the catch per reception. So you throw this guy the ball and he's picking up almost 8 extra yards after the catch. And in 2023, he had 406 yards after the catch for a very healthy 9.2 yards after the catch per reception. So almost a first down after he caught the ball, this guy. And he has 36 total missed tackles forced. So he's like genuinely a dynamic threat with the ball in his hands. I think he's a decent route runner for his size, but he's a big guy, and he looks like a big guy on film. He is also weirdly and quite a nuanced route runner. Like I've seen him like lean in to linebackers, like kind of stack them and then break out. So kind of creating that physicality on one side before breaking the opposite way to have that little few steps of separation. And it's quite odd seeing a receiver of his size kind of using those kind of wide receiver moves. But look, like it's in the production. You can see it for yourself. The weaknesses, though, for me is that he tries ridiculous moves for his size. It's basically like imagine you put Malik Neighbors' mind into like a 6'6", 250-pound frame. Like against Penn State, he tried the most ridiculous move I've ever seen someone do. He tried to, so they threw him a now route, which is when you just turn on the line of scrimmage, you catch it, and it's up to you to make something happen, right? It's usually like you get 5 yards or whatever. He tried to step a Penn State corner coming from the opposite side, and it was like trying to watch someone drift a truck. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that is not the kind of move that you should be trying to use there, my guy. Like, you are not Luther Bird and you are not Malik Neighbors. Just go downfield. He's not going to be a factor in the blocking game either. I know he's big and I know he's got the frame. He's 230 pounds, so he's not got the ideal blocking frame at all. That is going to be quite light for a tight end, actually, at 230 pounds. But the weight and his lack of blocking does limit, as I was saying earlier, it limits his potential usage and his potential fit. So for me, the bottom line with Harold Fanin is that this is kind of what you were saying, Nu, is that he's not really a tight end. He's more of a power slot, like a big slot receiver, like a Roma Dunze kind of vibe. And that's what I think he should be at the next level, really.
Also, Don, my pro-con for him was a fat Deebo Samuel.
Like yeah, I love that.
The way he would operate best in a West Coast system, which is why I was a bit hesitant when he said the 49ers, I think he would absolutely cook in a position like the 49ers. Get the ball in his hand, make him make plays, the quick passing game, short run game. He is the best with the ball in his hands, even though he is a good route runner. And I think he would be best as almost like a hybrid move tight end rather than an inline blocker, which is where you get the most use out of him, where a coach like Shanahan would get so much use out of him, spreading him across the field. And also, he's a willing blocker. I do see some potential upside there, but similar with Gunnar Helm, he was never going to be an elite blocking tight end, but I think that he just needs a couple years to really settle in. And the way you can get him involved as a rookie is by scheming him open, giving him tight end screens, giving him, crosses over the middle. Stuff he can really show his ability. And I think like a West Coast system would really, really suit his style.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, get creative with this guy, essentially. Like help him have targets, like feed him the ball. Don't just expect him to win on seams in contested catch situations. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to like George Kittle someone and just like moss them at the catch point. But like he's got genuine skills. It's almost a shame. I wish I could kind of see him. Obviously, you can like lose weight and you can gain weight. You can't like lose inches. Well, you can't lose height and gain height. So like it's a bit of a shame because if you could cut down to like 6'3", well, then we've really got something to play with here. So like it's a shame really. But like I think like where do you think you could kind of go in the range of the draft?
So I would love him to the Niners in the second round. Like middle of the second round, around pick 50 would be an amazing pick. I think that is really where his value is. I think the middle of the second round, maybe higher end of the second round. First round pick is still too rich for my blood, but second round, I'd say is nailed on.
Interesting. And then so Nu, what about your number 2?
My number 2 is Colston Loveland, the tight end.
Yeah, we're gonna have the exact same list here.
Yes. So the thing with the top 2 guys is, well, also Hal Fanin, but obviously this is a bigger program, is they are the main receiving threats on their teams. They are basically what drives their respected offenses. And Colston Loveland had a bit of injury problems this year, missed a couple of games, but has 3 solid years of production and shown increase on the production every single year he's played. He looks like a complete tight end to me, Dom. You know, he is not a liability in the run game. Good route running, good hands. He's a bit slender, I guess, is the only thing you would have a problem on the eye test. But when you're watching his films, there's really nothing that you can pick apart. The only thing is that he doesn't have that many elite traits, which is why you're not talking about him in the top 15. It's more the bottom end. But Dom, what he does and what you ask him to do, he does well. And what more can you ask from a player?
Yeah, I mean, Colston Loveland is my tight end too, I think pretty clearly. But I don't think I'm as high on him as the consensus is. Like, I'm seeing people like pretty consistently having like Loveland over Tyler Warren, who we'll obviously talk about later, or like saying that Colston Loveland should go to the Chargers at, let's say, like pick 18 or somewhere in or around that kind of range. I think that's a bit rich for me personally with Colston Loveland. I mean, just to kind of give him some stats here. He's 6'5", 245 pounds. He's obviously from Michigan. He has two good years of production essentially from Michigan.
Started as a freshman though, about 250 yards as a freshman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 230 yards as a freshman. Then in his sophomore season, so his second season, he had 649 yards, and then this year hang on. So this year he had 582 yards. Now the reason why I paused there is because there is the added context here is that this Michigan team is vastly different to the one that won the national championship last year, right? JJ McCarthy is gone. Harbaugh, the head coach, is gone. The defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter, is gone. Like it's a different Michigan team, and I think that's reflected in Colston Loveland's stats. I think that there's a whole highlight reel that you could make of essentially the quarterbacks, whoever that might be from Michigan, Alex Orji or whoever else it might be, just airmailing Colston, who is wide open, running some great routes. And he has like really good route running ability, I think. I think it's a little bit hit and miss sometimes. But when it hits, like he's open. Like this guy can get open at the NFL level. And I think we've seen flashes. It's unfortunate that it hasn't been more than flashes in this Michigan offense because the quarterback play has been awful.
Yeah, well, even when JJ McCarthy was there, Dom, there was the questions last year of his low production because of their reliance on the run game, which does mean he's a good run blocker. But also, yeah, you're right, Dom. The Michigan quarterback situation is pretty awful. They've got Bryce Underwood. Apparently, they're paying him $8 million over 4 years, $10 million over 4 years, which is the topic for another day. But hopefully, he can revitalize this Michigan offense. But Colston Loveland, still a very good player. But just on film, you don't see either the elite production or really the elite traits needed to be one of the top 10 picks.
Yeah, I think what really gives me pause for thought with Colston Loveland is that he's not a yards after the catch threat, and if you're a tight end, like that's kind of where you have to thrive because the place in which you're going to get the ball in the field is going to be like the short and intermediate, like over the middle, which like if you need to pick up yards, you need to do it after the catch, right? You're not going to be running a fade down the sideline like a wide receiver, and he's only forced 3 missed tackles in 2024 and only 8 in his entire career, which like I think for someone if you're going to draft a tight end in the first round, you want him to be able to do that. You're either looking for a Kyle Pitts or a Brock Bowers who can be an X factor in the receiving game, which I don't think Colston Loveland can be. That's not to say that he's not worth a first overall pick just because he can't do that, but he can't then also be a kind of a George Kittle-esque, or who else has gone in the first round recently for or a Dalton Kincaid, or someone that can that can create their own yards. I don't see Colston Loveland really being able to do that on film. And also with his route running, he sometimes gets tripped up over his own feet. It's almost like Bambi on ice sometimes I look at. Like I said, it's either really great and he gets open, or it's really ugly, the route. And so for Colston Loveland, I think he should be a first round player in a weaker class. But I would take him at the back end of the first round. He's my 29th ranked player. So he's just a first rounder for me.
Yeah, also, Dom, I was just thinking while saying that, if you're a team like the Chiefs who maybe need a new tight end, an undertight to Kelsey, it might be worth picking Fanin over Colston Loveland, because I don't see that potential upside, really. I see him being the 10th best tight end, or the 8th best tight end. That's why I see his range being. And he's a coach's best friend, because if you draw up a play, he's going to be there and he's going to catch the ball and he's going to be in the right spot. But he just doesn't really have that X factor that maybe Harold Fanin could bring to your team.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, for me, I just think that Colston has to go to a team which regularly uses multiple tight end sets, which isn't that many. Do you know what I mean? He'd be really great at somewhere like the Ravens, but they need a proper wide receiver one. They can't keep drafting tight ends. But do you know what I mean? That kind of mold, somewhere like the Bills, he'd be a great second option if they lost. Who's their second tight end?
Oh my God. Out of Ole Miss, tight end out of Ole Miss. This is actually going to drive me crazy.
Anyway, the backup to Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox. If the Bills lost Dawson Knox, then that would. But again, are you going to draft a 1A, 1B tight end in the first round with your first overall pick? I don't know, man. That's a bit rich for my blood. But then the pièce de résistance of this class, Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. You tell me what you think of him first.
Well, so Dom, if you go back to our thousands of listeners, if you go back to our mock draft episode, you will hear me tell Dominic Corbett that Tyler Warren is a top 15 player and should go to the Colts, and he shot me down. He said I was wrong. Then he watched Tyler Warren film. That's what happens. He's so good, so electric, and most importantly, so entertaining to watch, Dom. He is the entire Penn State offense. He could easily drag this Penn State team to maybe a national championship just by himself. And that's why I think he's the number one ranked tight end, is because unlike Loveland, he does have that X factor. He is able to create plays. He's used as an F back, used as an H back, used in the speed option, the wing option. He's such a good player. And Dom also, he's a vicious blocker. If you watch the SMU game on one of the touchdowns, and he's just headbutting and blocking a linebacker out of the end zone, he's so impressive. And I think he can add so much value to a team. No, Tom, you jump on.
So I wanted to let you continue your thoughts there, Nu, because I completely agree with everything you've said. And I think there was a really funny comment on our last YouTube video where you were being clowned for you took Jalen Milroe at 6 to the Jets, and you did it something else, whatever. And this guy was calling you out for it. And then he replied to his own comment underneath and he did cook with Tyler Warren at 12 to the Colts though. And that is genuinely it. Tyler Warren is my 12th ranked player in this draft. I love this guy. He's going to be a real my guy. I'm going to be pounding the table for him. Essentially, in a class where it's Tetairoa McMillan and then maybe Luther Burden, and obviously depending on what you think of Travis Hunter, I think if you need a dynamic offensive weapon, I think that is Tyler Warren in this class. For me, this is going to be bold, so just hear me out here. I would only have him just below Brock Bowers if I was doing a tight end ranking with Tyler Warren and Brock Bowers. It would literally be 1A and 1B for me. I think he's going to be an immediate impact to whichever team drafts him. He's a do-it-all wide tight end. 6'6", 255 pounds. He can hold his own as a blocker. He is versatile. He's had 69 snaps out wide, 62 snaps in the backfield, 338 inline, so as a traditional tight end, 228 in the slot, and then wait for it, 33 at quarterback. Penn State put him at Wildcat quarterback for a reason, because he's a dynamic offensive playmaker. And he's forced 16 missed tackles as a receiver, as a tight end. He's forced 7 missed tackles as a rushing threat. He's really strong in contested catch situations at 73.3%. Like, what is not to like about this guy? Like, I know there's a question of how early should you draft a tight end, especially one which, Brock Bowers had 3 years of production at Georgia and was always going to be an elite tight end in the NFL, and we're seeing that already. Tyler Warren does not have that same like name value, same name recognition. But when I'm looking at Tyler Warren's tape new, that's the kind of player that I'm seeing. Like, that's the kind of impact that I can really easily see Tyler Warren having, is that Brock Bowers level of impact. And yeah, he's got his weaknesses. Drops have historically been an issue. It was 16.7% in 2022, 15% in 2023. That has gone down to 2.2% this year, but like, that's something you've got to be a bit wary of, I think. He's got good speed, but not great. He's not going to burn a defender. And his blocking technique is a bit reckless. It kind of like, goes all in, and it can kind of be boom or bust. But like I say, dude, Tyler Warren, like if I needed a receiver, if I needed a difference maker on my offense in this year's draft class, I would be looking at Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. It's that simple.
100% Dom, 6'6", 260 with that traditional tight end build. But Dom, he used to be a quarterback in high school, which is why they put him in quarterback so often for Penn State. And I understand people don't have a lot of time to watch film, but I please implore you, go watch Tyler Warren versus USC. He single-handedly wins that game for Penn State. He throws a touchdown, runs in for a touchdown, catches a touchdown, and scores as a center. I didn't even know that was an option. I didn't even know that was a rule until Tyler Warren did it. He wins that game for Penn State. He completely dominates number 44 every single play. You know where he is, and they didn't cover for him properly. Even the SMU game, they didn't do it. He is a difference maker, Dom. That is the right word to use, and that's why I agree. I would have him on my fringe of a top 10 player. And if you need a receiving threat, him versus Luther Burden isn't actually a bad discussion, seeing how well Brock Bowers is done in the NFL and seeing the impact a tight end can make. I think that's going to also really help boost his stock, Dom. Yeah,
definitely. It's a question of, would you rather have a traditional slot receiver, right? 5, sub 6 foot, nimble, shifty, or would you rather have a 6'6", 260 pound person who can put a defender on a sledge and then can also do the same things that Luther Burden can kind of do in a similar, relative to his size, obviously. Like, I think that's, like, genuinely, I could see a world where I would be thinking, depending on what my team is and what my team needs, I would be thinking about Tyler Warren ahead of a player like Luther Burden, depending on the context of your team. Genuinely, like, no, you cooked when you took Tyler Warren.
I told you, Dom.
Tyler Warren to the Colts at 12. Put that in blood. Like, that's what they need. It helps. CJ Stroud. It helps. Why am I blanking on the Colts? Anthony Richardson. It helps Anthony Richardson. Like, they've got AD Mitchell, they've got Michael Pittman, they've got Josh Downs. Like, they're missing a tight end. Like, I love it.
Dom, also, the reason why I bring up him, being almost an H-back, a hybrid back to players, because I think I'd work perfectly with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. I think in that scheme fit, to really take the pressure off of his throwing ability, is to have him as an H-back. Use him, shift him around. And I think that'd be the perfect fit, because I think that he needs a receiving option, but also he's always going to be a limited passer, Anthony Richardson. He has the great pass strength, but his pass accuracy will never be elite. He's 47% around that mark this year, one of the lowest in NFL history. So you've got to play to someone's strengths, which is massive catch radius, useful in the running game, which Tyler Warren both is. If I'm the Colts, he is number 1 on my draft board.
Yeah. Tyler Warren, you are an Indianapolis Colt. It is that simple. And also, just before we end, 44.
Cool number.
I kind of hate it in theory, but it's kind of cold on him.
It is with the no number on the Penn State back. The classic unis. He looks like
the no name.
He looks like he's from like the 1980s, and I mean that in a good way.
Do you think he can wear 44 in the league?
I think I would love it if he did, but I'm sure lineman numbers still exist.
I know it does for like 60s and 70s, but I think you can wear 40. Anyway, I hope if he can wear 40, 44 would be quite a cold number. I'm not going to lie, but no. Recap your top 3 for us.
So, I'll just do the top 3, not the honorable mentions. Number 3, I'll do the honorable mentions as well because we have the same top 3. So we got Luke Lachey, tight end of Iowa, best inline blocking tight end, but is limited as in the pass game. 3rd to 4th round, I expect him to go. Then you got Orunde Gadsen, and who do I say? Eli Yeah. Out of Vanderbilt, those are the two my Evan Ingram style players. More of an out wide. Eli Stowers, more of an out wide slot receiver more than a tight end. And then Howard Fanin, great H-back, fat Debo Samuel. That's the take you want. Colston Loveland at 2, very much a traditional tight end with limited upside. And then Tyler Warren. It speaks for himself.
Yeah, you've absolutely nailed that, New. I had Gunnar Helm as my honorable mention, the tight end from Texas. I think Mike Gesicki, kind of reliable quarterback best friend underneath an intermediate kind of zone of the field. Harold Fanin, the tight end from Bowling Green, more of a power slot, like you were talking about, like a Debo Samuel. Fat Debo Samuel, depends on how big Debo Samuel's looking these days. There's a lot of rumors going around about Debo, but I think, Howard Fanin, get a creative offensive coordinator, let this guy be essentially another wide receiver. Colston Loveland, I love what you just said there, Nu. I genuinely think you've absolutely summed that up. Limited upside, but rock solid, kind of like a high floor, low ceiling.
Yeah.
High floor, low ceiling kind of tight end. And then far and away the number one, Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. Offensive difference maker. Draft him and you won't regret it. It's as simple as that. You won't regret it. But Nu, that wraps up then our tight end rankings. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, then make sure you follow us as well. But I've been your host, Dom Corbs. That's been my co-host, Nick Corbs. We'll see you on the next one.
See ya.